The Order of Hermes stands as the purest and most astute bastion of Hermetism amongst the Magi of Mage the Ascension. Theirs is a magic and philosophy supposedly taught by Hermes Trismegistus himself, a Hellenistic blend of the Greek god of Hermes and the Egyptian deity Thoth, and passed down through the generations. It is a highly ritualistic school of magic with emphasis on will as the most powerful force in the universe. Hermetism has found its way into the teachings of countless occult subgroups, from the Hermetic Order of the Holy Dawn to Hollywood superstars embracing Kabbalistic teachings. When you think of a wizard such as Merlin or Harry Potter, your mind is drawn to the idea of a mage of the Order of Hermes. Cryptic, formulaic, and with ancient wisdom, these magi have chosen to operate within very set, specific parameters, developed over long periods of time through careful trial and error. Theirs is not a magic based on whims or becoming one with the energies of the world, but rather that of a master bending the world to their will, forcing it to comply with their wishes. Tried and tested traditional magic has been their calling card, and while the modern era has not been kind to them, those of their tradition that have been able to adapt to the changing times remain potent contestants in the pursuit of ascension. The tools employed by the Order of Hermes are, of course, conventional in the world of magic. Other traditions may employ all or some of them, but few are as thoroughly familiar with the workings of their foci as the Order. Tarot cards, the Kabbalah, numerology and arithmancy, and of course magical circles of summoning, protection and transmutation. Mages of the Order conduct their magic ceremoniously and with great seriousness, which often bolsters the power of their spells, but at a cost of making them less skilled at the art of improvisational casting. A mage of the Order of Hermes is more likely to be found in the laboratories, nose deep in an ancient tome, and with all manners of alchemical potions brewing in the corner of their space, rather than gallivanting around on adventures. Yet, given proper preparations, they can cast lethal and devastating magic on their foes in the battlefield, and it is almost an art in itself watching a Hermetic mage wield their spheres at full force. Yet in the last generation, the Order of Hermes has undergone a drastic change. The Ars Hermeticum, the metaphorical heart and bastion of the Order, remains clogged with infighting and esoteric protocol that did little more than stymie the development and growth that any new blood might bring to the tradition. But as Doisetep, the actual physical headquarters of the Order, was destroyed, so too were many of the older and more rancorous of its members. Doisetep was the greatest chantry in history, and its destruction heralded the beginning of the end times in many ways, and what was left was a weakened, and in many ways humbled tradition who realized that they needed to remain relevant in the invisible war between the traditions and the technocracy, and thus they needed to adapt to these changing times. Yet they simultaneously needed to do so without compromising what made their order strong in the first place, their tradition and their ancient wisdom. Theirs is a long and complex history to the Order of Hermes, but for now we shall focus on them as they appear in the modern night, as that will be more than enough to keep us busy. Let us begin with one of the most defining traits of the Hermetic Order, the hierarchy. Embracing eagerly the idea that might makes right, the Order of Hermes promote their most senior and most potent will workers to the highest degrees of their order, where their voices carry significantly more weight than those of a younger magi. Of course, raw power is not necessarily all that rules, but such a thing usually comes with age, and while some younger mages may have worked their way into some kind of authority within the tradition, these are more often the exception to the rule, and their situation may be highly dependent on just how relevant whatever other skills or abilities they sit on are. Influence, pull in the right circles, and downright manipulation are not uncommon, and may in fact be par for the course amongst the higher ranks of these magi. And despite all what the Order has been through, most of the time this hierarchy stands. 9 degrees for each member of the Order of Hermes to pass through on their journey to unlocking the true secrets of the spheres. Every mage who joins the Order begins as an apprentice, and will remain so for the first 3 degrees they walk. Unlike many other traditions, a mage does not seek membership in the Order. They are recruited by a future mentor who sees the potential in them. Sometimes a mentor will actually go out and find these potential recruits, but the job is more often left to the House Fortunae, one of the sub-houses of the Order, who tends to be more adept at finding and more importantly convincing new members to join. Of course, with the recent collapse of much of the Order's internal structure, they have found themselves more and more having to rely on the old-fashioned ways of finding apprentices, and thus it has become increasingly common for mages of this tradition to take a more active role in tracking down suitable recruits. Any potential recruit is rigorously and secretly tested in all manners of ways to ensure that they have both the skills and mentality needed for the life ahead of them. Despite their love for grandiosity, these tests tend to be subtle and never announced as such, as any forewarning would allow the aspiring initiate to prepare for them duly. These tests tend to happen before the potential recruit even knows that they are being targeted, and should they prove themselves worthy, the mage will then approach them directly and offer to introduce them to a less prestigious circle than the Order of Hermes. This, of course, is simply another test to weed out the unworthy, just like how in alchemy one must eliminate the base to bring out the pure, undiluted potential. Most, if not all, recruits in the Order tend to still be sleepers when they are accepted in, and their awakening will usually not occur until the student has been taught, and to a degree has mastered the Ars of Goetia. Goetia is the simplest form of magic by the teachings of the Order, and it can be considered hedge wizardry, or sorcery. It is rudimentary and basic, lacking any raw potential that true magic does, but it can be taught even to sleepers, and is therefore considered a requirement for all to learn before they can ascend to Thurgia, the practice of Hermetic high ritual hedge magic, where one forms a union with the divine. When studying Thurgia, the apprentice will learn to interact with beings both divine and mundane, with spirits of nature and the supernatural, and learn to ask these beings for favors, sometimes even bending them to their will. But it is when the student has awoken that they will learn to wield magia, the purest form of magic, where the mage enters into a union with the spheres themselves. Many members of the Order of Hermes never attain magia, limited by their fate to remain sleepers, but even these sorcerers are a cut above most mortal hedge wizards in terms of knowledge and experience. An apprentice will most likely grow to despise their mentor during their time in the first and second degrees of their studies. The curriculum consists of a plethora of subjects and there is no room for rest or other activities. They are taught history, theology, a multitude of dead and living languages, and the fundamental occult studies of numerology, alchemy, and other forms of mundane magic. Of course, again, this harrowing period is so for a purpose. If the potential recruit cannot handle this amount of pressure, they will likely never awaken in the first place, nor will they ever make it as a member of the Order. Teaching the apprentice the Arts of Goetia is likewise a test, a trap designed to measure the aspirations of the hopeful scholar. If they are satisfied by the earthly rewards that mere hedge wizardry brings, that will be their lot. But if they are willing to sacrifice all that it will give them in exchange for just a morsel of the truth about the world, then they show signs of being worthy for further studies. The apprentice will also become more integrated into the Order by their second degree, and mages will approach them to get a feel for who this new potential is, and possibly sow the seeds of future support in in-order politics. After all, while the apprentice has no political clout at this point, you never know who might rise to the top, and how quickly that can happen. The Zelator, that is to say the apprentice of the second degree, also needs to begin their research into selecting a word that will embody them once they have, hopefully, awakened. The word is a divine imperative with limitless potential, and it often becomes an object of constant reflection, study, and focus for the new mage of the Order. It is through this word that the mage hopes to achieve ascendance, and in a sense apotheosis, becoming one with cosmic divinity and godhead. Indeed, the Order of Hermes train their recruits to awaken, which is perhaps unique in the world of the Magi, but more accurately one must think that the Order is simply very good at finding those sleepers who may one day awaken. Very few already awakened individuals join the Order. Instead, apprentices are forced to expand their minds to the point of breaking out of their state as sleepers in this excruciating apprenticeship that may last up to 5 years. Most recruits will awaken during the third degree, after which they will become accepted members of the Order. But some achieve this even earlier, during their time in the second or even the first circle. Thankfully, the Order is familiar enough with this so that they can continue to steer their new members in the right direction, learning the Ars Hermetica, the laws of the Order of Hermes, in order to serve the tradition. Each mage who joins the Order of Hermes needs to swear an oath of fealty by the Code of Hermes. This is of course a grand, serious event, as in many other secret fellowships, and any who break these laws, openly, can expect harsh punishments for it. Expulsion might not be unusual in a sleeper society, but among the awakened, there are other, far worse fates. Naturally, due to the many layers of politics and intrigue among the mages of the Order of Hermes, most every member has on average broken more than their fair share of these laws, but they have done so while getting away with it. As you will see, some leave little room for interpretation, while others could have their meaning debated for years on end. I swear everlasting loyalty to the Order and its members. The Order's friends and enemies are my friends and enemies, and I shall not spurn a friend nor succor an enemy. I shall not through action or inaction endanger the Order, nor consort with devils or the undead, nor anger the Fae. I shall not deprive any Order mage of magical power, nor through action or inaction attempt to bring harm to an Order mage, except in justly declared and open ceremony. I shall not spy by any means or manner upon another Order mage's private works, nor read an Order mage's mind, nor invade or observe an Order mage's sanctum, save to guard against a clear, direct, forceful, and imminent threat to the safety of the Order. If called before a tribunal, I shall abide by its verdicts. If called to sit upon a tribunal, I shall vote wisely, respect the votes of others, and support the tribunal's verdict. Upon reaching the 5th degree or higher, I shall train apprentices and instruct them in this code. I bear the entire responsibility for my apprentice and shall duly admonish, restrain, discipline, or arrest an apprentice who endangers the Order, and shall yield same apprentice to the Order's lawfully appointed agent or tribunal. I solemnly swear to uphold this sacred code of Hermes and venture any risk or sacrifice to protect it. Should I breach it, may all mages of the Order rise as one united and hunt me down and destroy me forevermore. I solemnly swear to vigorously and actively pursue the enemies of Ascension and to unmake their works in this world and in all others. These are the codes of the Order of Hermes are founded upon, and without them it is difficult to say if they would still remain relevant. Yet of course this is but a small part of the greatness of the Order of Hermes. In the future, we may perhaps learn more about them and their history, but for now, I leave you with these parting words. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. This video was brought to you by my patron Alexander Kirschtaria. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope it was to your liking.